Good morning. Today in my good morning. Quick question before we begin. Who in here has a phone? Yeah, everyone. Okay. How many of you have PTSD from this app? Life 360. Yeah, I see quite a few reactions. So my speech for and final speech I'm going to give today is why I believe I personally didn't have it, but I know a lot of my friends had it. Why I believe tracking apps are more harmful than helpful to teenagers, adolescents, and young adults. So within the last years, as I noticed it more particularly when I went into high school, but there's a rise of tracking apps and controlling parents. According to the Pew Research study, more than 60% of parents monitor their children's activity, both physically and on social media. 35% have their child's password to social media. And according to the recent census done in 2020, around 42 million teens in the US, and of those 42 million teens, upwards of 30 million are forced to or use some sort of tracking app. So you see, how do they track them? Well, it's your phone and it's an app. Your phone obviously gives you constant communication to apps and everything, location. So these are the two most popular apps that are used I've noticed around my friends to track them. So first one is Life 360, founded in 08, grew in popularity around 2017. That's when at least I noticed it going into popularity. That's when I originally went into high school, and currently there are around 32 million monthly users on that platform. The second one is Find My Friends, founded in 2011. Recently gained popularity as a competitor of Life 360. It's very similar, and it has an estimated of 10 million monthly users. So what do these apps do? Like, what do they communicate to parents? So Life 360, I know, communicates your current location regardless. Anytime the parent opens the phone, they can see your current location. It tells you when they left the house, when they got back to the house. You can also set certain other locations. So if you're going to school, it says, oh, your son arrived at the school. It also tracks your speed and tracks the route you took to get to a certain place to see if you went out of the way at all. That's what these apps do. So really, literally is a tracking device, tells your parents everything about where you're going, what you're doing, and your speed when you're driving. So argument one, why I believe tracking devices are more harmful. There's a lot of long-term effects that studies have found. First one is it tends to lead to loneliness, and it makes it difficult for young adults to make friends and to also find romantic relationships, as it like strains their communication between, obviously, like you learn a lot of communication through parents, and not being able to communicate where you are, or that sense of trust really makes it difficult for them. By age 32, study found that they achieved less as educational success. There's a lack of confidence, and kids who had controlling parents tend to struggle in tasks that require assertiveness, independence, and autonomy throughout development. My second argument is children don't learn from this obsessive controlling tracking. Children learn from their mistakes, and tracking them doesn't allow them to make mistakes. I know for me, I never had it, and a lot of my mistakes were when I was caught lying to my dad about where I was, because he just had me text him where I was going, who I was with. So like if I didn't have that, I wouldn't learn. Obviously, I know lying's not right, but lying to my dad, or it doesn't teach you, it doesn't allow your child to learn from their mistakes. And a part of maturing into adulthood is making your mistakes and growing from them. And these tracking devices don't allow you to do that. And also, learning from your own mistakes allows children to develop self-confidence, self-concept, and moral judgment. Argument three is our parents weren't tracked. In their generation, technology wasn't as advanced as it is now, and they weren't forced to be tracked. They didn't even have cell phones to communicate with their parents where they were going. They would just be like, hey, I'm leaving, I'm going here. And there was trust between their parents and them. And obviously, we all have parents, I hope. And they all turned out fine. So I don't understand why, if they didn't have it, they don't understand the feeling of being tracked constantly, and that feeling of not having trust. I don't understand how they could implicate that onto their children, even if they know that they didn't have it and they turned out just as fine. Counter arguments, it allows parents to know that their child is safe. A parent said that being able to make sure your child gets to and from school and friend's house safely. There's like, yeah, that's a valid reason, but I mean, there's other ways to do it. You could just have your child text them when you get home. I know that's what I did for sure. Anytime I was leaving the school, I'd be like heading home. When I got home, I text them I was home. Like there's other ways to do it instead of 24/7 communication on like tracking on where they're at. And the other one is reduces parent stress and anxiety. This relates back more to the fact that they know that their child is safe. One Elaine Spector in the study I was reading said, I like this subtle part of he's safe and I don't need to pester him. Well, when you're in when you're out and about, you should be able to just like there's other ways to do it besides just 24/7 monitoring. Like I said originally, like just text here and there, or simply just knowing that they're okay and trusting them and knowing that teaching them that if something does go wrong, that there's a phone call waiting to happen. My final argument, and this is really the big one that I've seen personal firsthand experience on how it ruins the parent to child relationship. First of all, it promotes sneakiness. I know for me, I had a friend who had Life 360, and they were always trying to figure out ways around the constant monitoring, more of the speed. I know if we were driving, it would record your top speed. So we'd hit the freeway to hit the speed limit on the freeway and able to fly back doors through the normal streets. And it really just like, that's one example of it just forces these kids to not just be honest with their parents, and it forces them to find loopholes. The second one that studies have found is it creates more conflict. When the children feel that their privacy is being invaded, there tends to be higher levels of conflict at home. And the final one, and really the big one, is creates a lack of trust in the relationship, and a lack of trust leads to barriers. So instead of like having your kid come up to you, be like, "Hey, this and this happened. Like this was my mistake," they hide it or they don't confide in their parents because there's a lack of trust. Like, how would you feel if you're like, "Oh, I trust you, but then I'm going to track you 24/7 where you go." Like, "Oh, you're telling me you're going here, but I'm still going to track you because I don't trust you." So in conclusion, seeing a firsthand experience with all my friends, um, while these tracking devices, they do give parents the peace of mind knowing that their child is safe. And like that's a valid argument. And that's the helpful aspect of these tracking devices, but the harmful one in it really just puts a strain on the relationship between the parent and the child, and it really doesn't allow the child to develop and learn from their mistakes. So final argument stands, upholding my argument that tracking apps are more harmful than helpful. Thank you guys for your time. That was so bad. Oh shoot.